often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around. I ask you today, how are you turning a life around? There was a little girl in 5th grade. She was always happy to go to school and wanted nothing more than to please those around her. She was the student that worked so hard just for approval because disappointment in her was worse than any form of discipline ever could have been. And one day this little girl went to art class, and art was special because it only happened once a week. And in art that day, they were going to make a 6x6 piece of paper and draw their house on it. And then after drafting, they were going to put their house onto a piece of cloth and make a class quilt. And all the kids were very excited. This little girl sat down and she diligently got to work on her house, a house that her dad had built. She was so proud of it. She drew the stone and the wood shingles. She just was so excited when she got done, and she walked up to her teacher and she handed her a paper. And very quickly she realized she had done something terribly wrong, but she wasn't sure what she had done. And that teacher looked down at her and she said, "Was it really that difficult? I asked you to draw your house, the one you live in right now with your parents, not a dream home. This is not what I asked you to do." And that little girl hung her head, and she said, "Well, that is my house. That's where I live." She said, "Some people think my house looks like a cupcake. I live in a round house." And the teacher said, "No, I don't want you to draw that. A house is square with a triangle roof and a chimney." And she said, "Well, my house isn't." She looked to her friend, and her friend said, "No, her house looks like a rocket ship." And the teacher quickly told her that she didn't ask for her input. So the little girl stood there and she ripped her paper down the center and threw it in the trash can. She said, "I'm going to be very nice to you today and give you a new piece of paper. And I want you to draw your house, a square with a triangle and a chimney." So the little girl went back to her table and she sat down and she drew a house. And it was a very beautiful picture, but it was not her house. And that night when she went home, she was telling her mom what had happened. And I give that mom credit because she could have called the school irate. She could have belittled that teacher. But instead, she chose to empower her child. She gave that child a picture of her house, one that does look like a cupcake. And she sent her back to school and said, "Please show your art teacher this picture." So the next day, that little girl took her picture to art. And she gave her the picture to her teacher. And the teacher stood there and she looked at it. She didn't say anything to the little girl. She said, "You can go back to class now. Thanks for coming in." So the little girl went back to class. And then a week later, when art rolled around again, the teacher handed out all the drafts. She gave the little girl back the square with the triangle and the chimney. And the little girl politely raised her hand and she said, "Would it be possible to get a new piece of paper so I can draw my real house now?" "Yeah, that's fine. There's paper on my desk," was the reply she got. So the little girl looked at the teacher and she ripped that square house right in half and put it in the trash can. She went, she got a new piece of paper, and she worked on her house. Several years later, this little girl grew up and she went on to college to be a teacher. And as she was sitting in her methods course, the teacher was talking about the impact that teachers have on children and how you never forget the things they do for you. And the little girl was thinking that, and the teacher started to tell a story about a little boy in our class. And as he was telling this story, the little girl, the now grown girl, was thinking how different it was than her own story. And the story went like this. There was a little boy that knew he was not good at art. And he didn't like to draw in front of his peers because they always made fun of him. And he assumed his teacher must have not thought he was good at art either because she never stood up for him. And one day the little boy went into art class and his art teacher gave him a piece of paper and asked him to draw a picture. The little boy sat there and he drew nothing on his paper. And at the end of class, the art teacher knelt down next to him and he said, "I love your blizzard. That is the most amazing blizzard I have ever seen. Look at the snow-covered trees and the snow-covered road, and that is just awesome. You did such a great job. Put it on my desk." The little boy looked at him like he was crazy. But he did. He put it on his desk. And then a week later, he came in and the same thing happened. And he sat at his table and he drew nothing. And that art teacher walked over to him and said, "You've drawn the most beautiful snow day I've ever seen. I love the kids having the snowball fight, and that snowman's awesome. You did great. Put it on my desk." And again, that little boy thought he was kind of crazy. And the next week he came in and he drew a picture on that paper. And it was an amazing picture. Not because he was an amazing artist, but because he did the process, and he learned to trust that teacher because he knew he was safe. I am 30 years old, standing here before you today, but I was that little girl in the 5th grade art class. I'm all grown up now, and I still remember that 5th grade day like it was yesterday. The impact you make is so profound, you have to remember even the tiniest moments count. Leo Buscaglia also stated, "What love we're given we'll have forever. What love we fail to give will be lost for eternity." Remember that your teaching heart is God's gift to you, but what you do with your ability to touch thousands of lives is your gift back to not only God, but to the rest of this world. When you are 30, 40, and even 50, what do you want those kids to look back and be able to say about their teacher? Please see the beauty